Hey, Diane.
Hey, Derek.
Let me ask you a question. When you were a kid growing up, did your parents ever tell you that you had to finish all of the food on your plate because there were children starving in Africa?
Yeah, I kind of think that was a hallmark for all of us who grew up in the 80s.
Yeah, I never understood the connection between how much food I left on my plate and the famine in Ethiopia. But nor did I appreciate how many children were going to bed hungry every night.
Well, and it's so many years later, and we're still hearing about all of these issues of malnutrition and food insecurity, not only in Africa and in other places around the developing world, but right here in Canada.
Yeah, and right here at McGill, there are actually many researchers doing incredibly important work to try to understand issues around food security, food production, and even some of the policies that are leading to so many people going to bed hungry every night.
One question I've always had is there actually enough food being produced in the world to feed everybody on the planet?
That's a great question. In fact, that's one of them that I put to our guest today, who heads up the Gilliam Institute for Global Food Security on our McDonald campus.
That sounds like a fascinating conversation. Let's get into it.
Welcome to this edition of the Mark My Words podcast. My name is Derek Kassoff, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Patrick Courtbaoui, agricultural engineer, food security consultant, and most notably, managing director of McGill University's Margaret A. Gilliam Institute for Global Food Security, located on our McDonald campus within the Faculty of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences. Patrick, it's a pleasure to welcome you to our studio.
Good morning, Derek, and thank you for hosting me today. It's a great pleasure, likewise. Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Wonderful. So before we jump into the conversation around food security, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and how you first got interested in the topic of agriculture and food security, and what drew you to your current role at McGill.
Sure. I grew up in a small country in the Middle East, but known for its best food, and it's a beautiful country, but it's big in its heart and called Lebanon. So I studied agricultural engineering. And when I first came to Montreal in 2001, actually, where I specialized in food processing here at McGill, and then I did my master's studies in post-harvest engineering. And then with a focus mainly on food processing and food chemistry and agriculture, and food waste reduction. Then what I did, I had the opportunity to work as an operation manager for a private food company based in Montreal as well. At the same time, I was approached by the United Nations to work on specific projects in green agriculture, and this is where I had that was kind of a turning point for me, where I had developed my interest in and passion to work in international development, actually.
Wonderful. And I have to say, I'm a big fan of Lebanese cuisine.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Dave.
So let's talk about food and
Yeah,
specifically the global food crisis that you and your colleagues are devoting so much energy to understanding and trying to solve. So we've heard talk about individuals and entire populations, in fact, being unable to access enough food to meet their basic health requirements for as long as I can remember. But it feels to me like the situation is getting worse over the last number of years. So I guess my first question to you is, how dire is the situation for the world's most vulnerable populations right now, and how did we get to this point?
Well, actually, you're absolutely right. It's getting worse and worse every year. And then, let me just share with you some alarming statistics actually today. In 2024, actually, there was over more than 300 million people. They were, across 53 countries, they going to bed hungry every single night. So there was an acute hunger there. An increase of 13.7 million from 2023, actually, and making the sixth straight year of rising acute food insecurity. The second alarming statistic is that a record of 2 million people actually are now experiencing catastrophic hunger, the highest level since tracking began in 2016. Vulnerable groups, especially children under 5, this is where the most cognitive and physical development happen. Mm-hmm. They're nearly, we're talking about 38 million, actually malnourished. And when I say malnourished, are undernourished and overnourished. So they can be poor and receive, they are hungry, and they can be overweight and obese. Globally, in 2024, actually, we had around 700 million people, which is around 8.2% of the entire population today. They were undernourished. And meanwhile, you have, that's the whole what we call the hidden hunger, which is you can look perfectly in shape, but you're lacking the micro and macronutrients because you cannot afford eating healthy diets. And we're talking about 3 billion people today they're having what we call the hidden hunger. So add this to the 700 million, so we're more than like almost like 35% of the entire population today. And the last statistic actually from the WFP, which is the World Food Program of the United Nations, they estimated around 350 million people across 74 countries. They were acutely food insecure, and so. The problem is also with the United Nations, they're cutting 40%. They were cut in their 40% of their funding for humanitarian aid, actually, leaving 58 million people today at risk of starvation. And my last but not least alarming statistics today, even in Canada. So like with 23% of Canadians are food insecure. We're talking about 9 to 10 million of Canadians food insecure people.
Wow.
We'll come back.
Those really are alarming statistics.
Yes.
Are we talking enough about this as a society?
I mean, I believe, yes, they start to talk about it. Like so we're increasing the awareness, like the radios, like the medias all over the world now, all the social media platforms, they're talking about this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Because I believe after COVID, the people, they start thinking more locally and what's happening. It's kind of a global crisis now. So what's happening in India, for example, it might affect Canada and vice versa. So there is no more kind of like hidden things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So based on your research, what are some of the biggest barriers to food access in some of these marginalized communities? And how are researchers like yourself working to address that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much, Derek. Actually, if I want to just summarize what I did and what I saw for the last 15 to 20 years, I've been traveling to developing countries and working with marginalized people. I believe the biggest barriers, if I can summarize them, let me start by saying that war, poverty, climate change are those like kind of like headlines causing food insecurity in those developing countries. Add to those some systemic and structural and intersectional barriers. For example, like they have one of the most problem today is youth migration in those countries. When I say youth migration, are people like from 15 to 35 years of age. They lost hope in agriculture. Mm-hmm. They're fleeing to other countries in the hope of having a better life. And what's happening? There are easy access to armed conflicts and corruption. So, for example, also like disrupted supply chain. We heard that during COVID. What happened with people like like displacement from going from one country to another, or sometimes within the same country going from one to another, with low or no even have access to food resources, because food insecurity today is not only food availability. We're not talking about the major problem in quantity. We're talking about accessibility mainly, and this is where it becomes the.
So just to come back on that point, you said if there's a lot of migration of, say, 15 to 35-year-olds leaving villages, leaving rural areas, are you suggesting that these are the potential farmers and agricultural producers who are giving up and leaving, and then there's no one left to produce the food?
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. So if you go to the statistics today, you see that 70% of the world food production is made out of smallholder farmers. And we're talking about smallholder farmers, they have less than one kind of acre of land. Mm-hmm. And who's will end up working is the youth, because those are the backbone and the future leaders. They're going to continue working in the agriculture sector. So our job at McGill is where to kind of like give them incentives to bring them back to agriculture, and how, because there is a serious problem in youth migration today.
Wow. So I just want to take a step back and look at food production more broadly. You talked about it in terms of the issue around migration of youth, but the planet's population has now exceeded 8 billion people.
Yeah.
Projections show that it will likely exceed 10 billion within 25 years. So scientifically and agriculturally speaking, can the world and its farmers produce enough food to support a population of this size?
The short answer is yes today. All right, scientifically and agriculturally, the world can produce enough food to feed the entire population and the extra 2 billion, because today we're around 8 billion. Mm-hmm. And the projection it shows that we're going to be like 10 billion by 2050. Yeah. So the short answer is yes. But the most challenging is how we're going to do it. We should do it sustainably, equitably, and nutritionally. Because as I said, the majority of the people today, or the recent statistics from the United Nations, shows that most of the people, or billions of them, they cannot afford eating healthy diets. Why? Because the healthy diet is more expensive than unhealthy diet. Let me just, if you allow me, just a couple of minutes to talk about this because that's kind of a very important question. Let me break it down and say, can we really grow enough calories today? The short answer is yes. I can assure you that the global food system already produces enough calories to feed 10 billion people today. But the problem isn't with the entire volume. It's as I said, the distribution, the injustice, the inequality, the waste. The food waste is one of the major problems, and the unsustainable food production practice. Actually, key facts. Today, the world today produces 2.8 billion tons of cereal grains. Those are enough to feed at least, or to provide, 2,900 calories per day. That's the normal body, like a human being needs to survive, right? But the main issue is that you have 800 million people, they go to bed hungry every single night. In parallel, you have 2 billion, they are obese and overweight. So the type of calorie that you guys are eating, or providing, is the most important, because you can have those 2,900 calories from junk food or high energy dense food that is not even healthy. And add to all this the 40% of food that is being lost or wasted. And I saw in some countries that can go up to 90% of food produced for human consumption. I'm not talking about feed. And
so this sounds like a very complex situation to solve. In your opinion, should the focus be on increasing agricultural yields? Should it be on fixing the food distribution networks, or is it more of a sort of policy issue, or is it a little bit of everything?
Actually, it's a mix of everything. So because that's why when we talk now, there is a new kind of concept called One Health. So talking about the health of the human versus and the health of the environment and the animal health, and no one should be left behind. So when you would just waste one apple, Derek, you know that you're not wasting only 70 grams of that specific apple. You're wasting all the natural resources behind it. You're wasting 70 liters of water behind that thing. So if if we're gonna go back to what can be pathways to sustainably feed 10 billion today, let me say by closing the yield gap, for example, many countries in sub-Saharan Africa, for example, grow below their potentials today. Like improving access to seeds, including water, what we call water harvesting there, coming from the rain, training and finance can double or triple even yields without even more producing more. So today is that we have to produce food without further compromising our beautiful and scarce environment. So that's the whole issue about it.
Right. Well, that's a nice segue to the next question I was going to ask about, which was climate change. We obviously talk a lot about climate change and global warming. I know it's having an acute impact in the developing world in particular. So how do we think about food security and climate change, the need to preserve biodiversity and ecosystems? It feels like you kind of can't do one without doing it at the expense of the other.
Well, climate change is affecting all 4 dimensions of food insecurity, or food security, like availability, accessibility, governance, and stability and utilization. So you have to do it you have to be kind of innovative you have to produce for today while being sustainable for many kind of generations to come. So I definitely believe that now we have tons of innovations worldwide working on food itself, like being innovated in terms of high resistance to drought and flooding. So, and we're doing great things at McGill as well, working with different people, like working on resiliency in terms of economic and social safety nets. We're talking about now using AI for the artificial intelligence to how to produce more food with less natural resources, and so on. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned AI. I don't think we can have a conversation on any topic in 2025 without talking about the impact. Absolutely. So I'm actually curious, how have the emerging fields of AI and data science, how are they being leveraged to maybe predict or prevent food shortages more effectively?
Look, McGill is, I can assure you that McGill is engaging in several promising AI, like projects and innovations, and including how to include or how to use AI for the best, for the benefits of the entire society actually today. And, using precision agriculture, for example, in order to use exactly what kind of, like the natural resources in a more efficient way. Exactly, it can predict how many, let's say, those environmental factors in terms of temperature, humidity, and water, and even light. So AI is very useful in terms of how to use it best. And actually, one of my mandate at the institute is how to engage or mainly youth in the AI, because digitized agriculture today, especially within indoor farming, is one of the best practices, or what actually is not even the best, is one of the promising future for those youth leaders. And yeah.
So I do want to ask, maybe you can talk a little bit about a couple of the examples of things happening here at McGill, at the Gilliam Institute. I know we just announced recently this summer a big project through the Mastercard Foundation, I believe it's called the McGill Collaborative, which has you working with, I think, 7 different universities in Ghana and West Africa.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a bit about that and some of the really exciting things happening here at McGill on the ground?
Sure. One of the pillars of this beautiful project, it's a 10-year project actually, and it's going to be focusing on nutrition and agri-food transformation in Ghana. And mainly working with youth, because they are the changer or the game changer in this, or at least we can rely on them to be the future leaders. So we're collaborating actually with 7 different academic institutions and private sectors actually in Ghana to build the capacity of the youth, of the young, Ghanaian. And that's actually tackling all the different, supply chain, from the consumption, from the production, all the way to the consumption level. So I'm really happy to be involved in that specific project. That's one project, and to make contribution actually, to make positive contribution to the world today actually, because as I said, what's happening there is also affecting the entire world. And mainly we get the one of the major focus of that project is working on indigenous. I like that, because taking or bringing people back to roots actually, and producing locally. I believe that's the $1 million lesson that we learned after COVID. If you want to go back to McGill, tons of other innovations happening or happened, or even were ongoing now in terms of agriculture and how to produce agriculture in a more efficient way. I know other colleagues, as I said, are working in indoor farming. They're working in nutrition, sensitive agriculture, for example, how to produce agriculture with a nutritional outcome. Because as I said today, people they cannot eating or afford eating healthy diets. So people are shifting. There is kind of a paradigm shift over the last couple of years now. How to produce food with a more nutritional outcomes. That's the most important. And the final comment, if I can say on this in this regards, is how to link nutrition, food, and health. Because what you eat, it affects your entire health status.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, so this next question might feel a bit self-serving, but I'll ask it anyway.
That's okay.
When it comes to food security
Sure.
and issues that we're talking about, why does so much of the world look to McGill University?
I believe strength is where we go and do projects. We co-create or we co-design those projects with the most vulnerable. So instead of coming back and say, well, what happened at McGill, we can replicate. We did that at McGill and it was successful. Let us just kind of replicate it in DR Congo, for example. The other way around is that we go there and we do this study. We talk to the people there. We just understand their needs, their daily struggles, and then we come back with kind of co-create with them the entire solutions and then the recommendations. And then I believe that's the whole what we call operational research. McGill is very strong in what we call applied / operational research.
Right. So is food insecurity mainly a problem impacting people in the developing world, or are we seeing concerns and numbers rising in developed industrialized nations like Canada?
That's a great question. No, actually, if I can say one word, like food security or food insecurity, it's a global crisis. It's affecting both developed and developing countries. And it's not a problem only as I said, in developing countries. It's a growing concern in many high-income countries such as Canada. And as I said, the recent statistics shows that In 2024 alone, Canadian food insecure, they were like 23%. We're talking about 9 to 10 million Canadians are food insecure. And the majority of those people are among First Nations and elderlies. Like I have some collaboration with, Montreal food banks. They've been seeing so unprecedented, like requests for food and food aids. So you can tell that food insecurity is affecting high income countries such as Canada. Let me share with you some statistics about Canada as well. 1 in 4 Canadian, as I said, they live in food insecure household, and 1.8 million children we're talking about. And so that's a huge numbers for Canada. And for example, Nunavut has the highest rate with 56%, and this is of those households, they live in less than 1.25 US dollar per day, which is like crazy.
In Nunavut.
Nunavut.
In our own country.
Exactly. And even in major urban centers like Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, food banks, as I said, reports high records in demand. So, yeah.
Wow. So before we conclude, this has been a very sobering conversation. So maybe I'll end on a bit of a high note and ask you what, if anything, gives you optimism for the future.
That's $1 million question, actually. I'm an optimistic person by nature, and given all the complexity of the food situation today, however, I still see the light at the tunnel at the end of the tunnel, and I see I'm very kind of convinced because we have the knowledge, we have the tools, we have the momentum, but we need kind of the will. So if we have, in my opinion, I've been traveling to many countries. I've been working with government mainly. If they have a political will there, so there must be some kind of solution, and therefore that gives me some optimism for the entire future. So how we gonna, reduce hunger to zero and to and reduce poverty and get off this vicious circle. And because of this, it's kind of a problem that we know all the different dimension of it. And let me just conclude by saying that I'm relying a lot on the youth. I'm working a lot with the youth. Those are kind of the new generations of leaders, and it's a lot easier, believe me, to work with youth and to convince them and to tell them how to appreciate food rather better than elderlies. Yeah.
Well, that's an optimistic, positive note. So maybe we'll end the conversation there. But,
Sure.
But thank you so much, Professor Courtbaoui, for sitting down with me today. To our viewers and listeners, stay tuned for another episode of Mark My Words next week. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Or subscribe to the show, and you'll never miss a new episode. Mark My Words is a production of McGill University Advancement in collaboration with the Department of Communications and Institutional Relations. Special thanks to our producer, Frank Roop, and to my co-host, Diane Fagan, who will be back here next week.
Thank you so much, Derek, and thank you for your
Thank you so much.
I appreciate that.